Hey everyone, the rest kindly open your camera.
Good afternoon, teacher.
Good afternoon, teacher.
Good afternoon,
Good
teacher.
afternoon,
Good
teacher.
afternoon,
Good
teacher.
afternoon, teacher.
Good afternoon. Okay, let's just wait for the others for entering.
Teacher, while we're waiting, regarding the poster in your
Yes, yeah, okay. So I'm going to announce. I'm going to tell you that actually today. So as what you may have known, Teacher Charlene and I, we are going to have a collab project, which is from your. Originally, it was for your video, which is from a fantasy movie, correct? Okay, there. So for the part of the ICT, so the thing that can be a criteria there is for the video editing, of course. So video editing, the quality of the video, so effects like that. If you can add, okay. So accuracy of your chosen story to the original story or your inspiration for your story. And of course, the quality of your deliberation. Okay, so how you are going to talk, the audio quality, like that. So that's going to be part of the criteria. And of course, the other one is going to be the poster. Okay, so uh, depending on what story that you chose. So of course, you're going to create a poster or lay out a poster that uh, that is about your chosen story. Okay, so I will grade that too. So this will be recorded as your project. Okay, so any questions about that? None anymore? Okay, so that was the uh, first issue that I would that was the issue that I was about to told you today. Okay, so but uh there you already initiated that one. And for today also we are going to just continue our discussions. Okay, so but first may I ask who are going to be able to share their screen when we are going to be applying some codes. Anyone who can share screen? Okay, so try that first. So because we'll start already our discussion. Okay. Okay, so moving on from our topics. So for today, this is going to be lesson 2, and this is going to be about different types of selectors. Okay. So probably that is a new term that you encountered today. So later we are going to elaborate further on that. Okay. And in this lesson, we are going to identify the CSS selectors rule, differentiate the types of CSS selectors, enumerate the common CSS properties and values, and create an HTML document with different selectors. Okay, but before we go through all of that, Oops. Before we go through all of that, so we are going to first have a quick review of our past lesson. And also we didn't get to apply our codes, right? So we didn't get to try out the CSS or the application of CSS to our HTML. Okay, but first, so what are the three types of CSS that we are applying? Okay, kindly give one first. Yes, Manalo. Okay, so first one is, of course, it says here, the inline, which is a style sheet uh, that is included already in the tag. So what's the next one? Yes, Benedict.
We also have the internal style sheet.
Okay, so we also have the internal style sheet that is being applied on a single page. And yes, JP.
My teacher.
Yes.
The last one is external style sheet.
Okay, and the last one is the external style sheet, which can be applied in multiple pages. Okay, so for the first one, we have the inline style sheet. Okay, so in terms of applying our inline style sheet, where does it have any similarity to? What HTML element does it have any similarity? Yes, Aguilon.
Sure, it has the similarity to attributes.
Okay, so this has similarity to our formatting attributes. Okay, so if you're going to look closely on how we applied our style, so the style equals and then the value inside the quotation mark. So if you can still remember our formatting attributes, this is how we are applying them. So we have the formatting attribute equals and then their value inside the quotation mark. So in this instance, in the inline style sheet, its pattern is basically the same, or its application is basically the same. So style equals and then the value. And then the value inside is our CSS syntax. Okay. And for our CSS syntax, it is going to be separated by a semicolon. Okay. So no matter how many CSS syntax you have here, as long as it is being separated by the semicolon, it will have no problem applying those properties to this specific tag. Okay. So again, of course, it says here inline. So so that means that it is in line with the tag that it is going to apply its property to. Okay, so it comes along with the tag. Okay, so if ever you're going to apply this at the p tag, so it should be inside the p tag. Okay, that is why it has similarities to our formatting attribute. Okay, and to apply this, okay, so let me be the one first. Okay, here. Okay, so we'll use again this example, and then we're going to apply our inline style sheet. Okay, so for the inline style sheet, again, it is functioning as a formatting attribute. Okay, so formatting attribute goes inside our beginning tag. So beginning tag and then style equals quotation mark, and the value inside is our CSS syntax. So that's going to be font dash wait, style colon italic, and then semicolon. Okay, so with this alone, we already have one CSS syntax. Okay, and then if we're going to add another, so right after the semicolon, that is where we're going to add the next one. So font dash family colon, and we're going to try impact. So run there. So all of these properties are being applied in the H1 since it is in the same tag where it is being applied to. So it's not just two, so we can apply more there. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we applied italic, a font impact, and then it is in color red. Okay, so that is how we're applying our inline style sheet. Okay, so is anyone able to open our screen, share screen? Who would be able to? You're just going to have to repeat this process. No one? Okay. So maybe maybe for next time. Okay. So just keep in mind or make sure that you're going to be able to apply this properly once we have our activities. Okay. So again, take note of the syntax and how it works. Okay. Yes, Jaylan?
So just for confirmation, you can put any kind of font style and family there, right?
Yes, but there are certain, there are only 3 font styles that we can apply here. So the font styles that we can apply here is one is normal. And so also italic and then oblique. There. So oblique is slightly slanted compared to italic. And for the font family, of course, there as long as you know some fonts and it is supported by your computer or your browser, so it will apply on that. So even if I apply Lato here, there, I think Lato is not supported in my browser or in my computer, so that's why it's not working. For example, there. So wide Latin, I have this font in my computer, so that's why it is being applied here. So for the color, so as long as you know the colors, there. There. So in the future meeting, so I'm going to provide you with the list of our CSS values here, or properties rather. So CSS properties that we can apply here, properties and their values, okay? It's just that for the font style, I think it's only 3. for the font style. Okay, so that's normal, oblique, and then in italic. Okay, so any more questions? Okay, already? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, so that is inline style sheet. Okay, so again, for the inline style sheet, it is functioning similar to our formatting attribute. Okay, so its application is similar to our formatting attribute where the style, we have the style equals, and then for the value, the CSS syntax. Okay, next is we have the internal style sheet. Okay, so quick question. So for the internal style sheet, where is it going to be located? Yes, Jaylan?
It will be located on the upper portion of the
Okay.
HTML document.
Okay, so it is going to be located at the top part or the upper portion of our HTML document. And what is the tag that is located there? Yes, Benedict?
If I'm not mistaken, teacher, I think it's the style tag.
Okay, so we have the style tag, or we are using the style tag. Okay, of course. But there is still a tag or important tag where our style tag should be located to. Yes, Angel.
Teacher, it's the head tag.
Okay, so our style sheet or internal style sheet, it is going to be located inside the head tag. Okay, and for us, in order for us to apply our style sheet, we are going to use the style tag. Okay, so this is the head. And this is the style. Okay, so the style tag is inside the head tag. Okay, and okay, so if earlier our internal style sheet, our inline style sheet, it was in a form of a formatting attribute. In the internal style sheet, it leveled up. Okay, so it's no longer a formatting attribute, it is now a tag itself. Okay, so that is for the internal style sheet. And in there, so in the style tag, so that is where we're going up to apply our CSS syntax. Okay, and as you can see here, so we have 1, 2 syntax. Okay, and in here we have our H1. Okay, so why is the H1 there? Okay, so it's because if in the inline style sheet, so we are applying our CSS properties directly to the tag. So for the internal style sheet, since it is going to cover the general properties of all the tags, so the tags that going to have a property or formatting property will have to be called. Okay, so that's why there is an H1 here. So they called H1, and then they said that it is going to have the property of font style italic and the font family papyrus. Okay, so that is why there is the H1 here, and enclosed with the curly brackets are the CSS syntax. Okay, so let's apply this first in our editor. Okay, so of course, we're going to have to remove this one. And so this is our content. It is inside the body. And we're going to have to locate the head. So locate, the head is located here. And then inside that, right after the title, that is the suggested position of the style tag. And so inside here, we can already call any tag that we want to have a formatting to. Okay, so in this case, we'll just call H1. H1 and then curly brackets there. And then inside our curly brackets, that is where we're going to apply our CSS syntax. So font, style, italic, semicolon. So semicolon indicates the end part of our syntax. Okay, so font style, colon, italic, semicolon. So semicolon should be always present at the end of each syntax. Font, family. Let's use Papyrus. Okay, and once we run this, there. So our H1 that was called here, so the H1 is positioned here. So using our style or inline style sheet, the style is in here, and we called H1 in here. And from here, we applied its properties. Okay, so same as the previous one for the inline style sheet, it's not just limited to 2. So we can still add more. So color, purple. Okay, run there. So it's not that obvious. Try red. There. So as you can see here, you can apply up to as much CSS syntax that you can apply. So as long as it is not overlapping or overriding other CSS syntax. Okay. Yes, JP.
Teacher, are there any more examples for font families? Can you give us more examples, teacher?
Okay, so for our font family, that highly depends on the fonts that is installed in your computer. Okay. So for example, so Times New Roman that will always be present in your computer. So there. What else? Calibri. This is the correct for Arial. Okay, so Arial that is applying. Yes, Dungan.
Teacher, what if I want the word this to be color red and then the word is to be yellow, for example?
Okay, so that is where an inline style sheet will be applied. Okay, so for example, it is going to be a single instance or single occurrence, right? So that is the purpose of our inline style sheet. Okay, and then of course there's going to be a time that there. So you want the word is to have a different color from the others. Okay, so this is the first time that I'm going to try this. So maybe, okay, so let's register this as the P. Going to run. Okay, so that's going to be a different section. So what is our alternative? Okay, so let's try this one. There. So you're going to have to come up with a tag that can be inserted inside here. And then in that tag, so you can still apply our inline style sheet for a single occurrence. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, so does that answer your question? Okay, so in here we can apply that as well. Okay, so any more question? Anyone? So this is clear to you already, our internal style sheet. Okay, so if it's clear already, let's move on. Okay, so again, internal style sheet, it will be located inside the head tag and enclosed in style tag is our CSS syntax, which we are calling out the tags or the HTML elements to apply our formatting properties. Okay, and for the last one, we have the external style sheet. Okay, so for this one, we're actually not going to be able to use our editor. So for this case, we're going to use an HTML document and a separate file of a CSS document. Okay, so but first in here, the external style sheet. So external style sheets, they are optimal to be used for multiple pages HTML documents. Okay. So as an example, so we have here the codes that is present in the HTML code or the HTML document. Okay, so in here, instead of the style sheets or the tag style, so we replaced it with a link. Okay, so we use a link tag and then rel style sheet so that it knows that it is a style sheet. And then for type, it is not that important for us to include type in here. So that does not hold any significance as to if your CSS is going to work. Okay, what's important here is the rel and of course our directory to the style sheet, href style.css. Okay, if you guys still remember href, that is our hyperlink method. Okay, so that is what we use to have a directory or to locate or to have a directory of a file. Okay, and the file that it is going to locate is the CSS file. So this style.css, that is the name of the document itself. Okay, so it should always be the same as the name of the document. So if your style.css, it has capital letter L. Okay, so in here, it should also have a capital L. Okay, and for the CSS document, this is what it should contain. So it will contain our CSS syntax, which is similar, of course, to our inline style sheet. So it is in the same format, but it is now in a separate document. So as if you notice, okay, starting from the inline, it is gradually evolving. So for the inline, it is a formatting attribute inside our tag. For the internal style sheet, it is a tag itself that is present in the header tag or the head tag. And for the external style sheet, it is a whole new document already. Okay, so that is CSS. Okay, and let's try to apply this. So not this. Okay, so in here, I already have our style.html. Okay, so I already made this one, and it is this file in here. Okay, so once I open this, there. So this is a heading, but there are no properties applied to it yet. Okay, because once we go to our code, okay, as you can see here, we already provided the link. Okay, so link rel style sheet hrel style.css. Okay, so that is the file name. And opening the style.css there, it does not contain anything yet. So that's why the HTML document does not have any properties assigned to it yet. Okay, so what we'll do here is h1 font style. Okay, let's try oblique. Font style oblique. Font family. Georgia. Then let's apply the color orange. Okay, so this will be our CSS property for the tag h1 in the style HTML, in the style.html document. Okay, so we'll just have to save this and then go back to our HTML document here. As you can see here, there's no settings yet. There's no formatting properties yet. And then once I hit refresh, there. So the formatting properties are already applied. Okay, so this is how we are applying our CSS document or our external style sheet. Okay, so these two, they are separate documents. So you can see here. So this is the style.css. This is the one that you will put inside the href. And then this is the style.html. Okay. So, okay. To make a CSS file also, okay, So if you're going to use a Notepad++, so new, and then, okay, so I'll make it so that you will notice something different. So I'm going to provide already the CSS syntax if you're going to notice any difference. Okay, so font style, italic, font, family, Arial, color, green. Okay, so if you type it at the very first time, it can be like this. Okay, so in Notepad++, okay, so you are just going to need to set the language located at the top, language, go to C, and then CSS. Okay, see there. So there are already a reserved format for our CSS that they are accepting. Okay. Okay, so let's try to save this first. Save as. Okay, so let's save this as style 2. Save. Okay, so this is style 2. So this is style 1. The font style is oblique, font family is Georgia, color is orange. Okay, so that is what is being applied here. Also here. Okay, but if we change this into style 2, save, then go back to our HTML document, hit refresh, there. So it changed. Okay, so that is what I am talking about. This one. Okay, so whatever it is, the style, the document name, that is what you're going to insert here. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, so any questions? Clarifications? Okay, so I hope you already understand how we are applying external style sheets. Okay, so it's just another document which is like this and a link from our HTML document. Okay, so next, moving on. Okay, so next one is how are we going to, or how are we exactly constructing or writing our CSS or cascading style sheets? Okay, so cascading style sheets or CSS is made up of rules which are made for selectors and declaration blocks. Okay, so keep in mind the terms selectors and declaration blocks. Okay, so declaration blocks are surrounded by curly brackets. Declaration blocks are made up of declarations, and declarations are made up of properties and values separated by semicolons. Okay, so if you're going to look at the example, from what it said earlier, so declaration blocks, they are surrounded by curly brackets. So if we have our curly brackets here, the one that's surrounding it is this one. Okay, so this is considered as our declaration block. Okay, so why is it a declaration block? Because it is a group of declarations. Okay, so declarations, they are these parts here. In this case, in this example, we have 3 declarations. First declaration is the font family, Verdana. Second declaration is font style bold and color purple. Okay, so that is our declaration examples. Okay, so we have 3 declarations, and this group of declarations, they are called declaration block. Okay, and each declaration, it is composed of a property and a value. Okay, so we have okay there. So in here we have our declaration block, which is made up of multiple declarations, and the declaration is made up of a property and a value. Okay, so that is how we are looking at it. Okay, so this is a single declaration, and this is a declaration block. Okay, and as you can see here, we missed one, so we have the H1. Okay, so H1, that is the selector. Okay, so teacher, why is it called the selector? Because it is the one selecting which tag or HTML element will have this particular setting to it, or this particular attribute or property applied to it. Okay, so this can be OL or P or UL or table, as long as it is a tag where we can apply these attributes, properties rather. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, so that is the parts of our CSS syntax. So we have the selector that selects the tags to be edited or formatted or to be given a design. And we have declarations here. So why declarations? It is declaring what type of property are we going to apply. So in here, it declared that it is going to be a font family. In here, it declared that it is going to be a font style. In here, it declared that it is going to be a color. Okay, so is that clear? And of course, it has different types of selectors. Okay, so if you have any idea, so what are our different types of selectors? We have 3. Okay, give the first one. Adalia.
Element selector.
Okay, so the first one, element selector. Yes, Jomshi.
The second one is class selector.
We have the class selector. And yes, Julian.
The third one is ID selector.
Okay, the third one is the ID selector. Okay, so element selector, class selector, ID selector. Okay, and okay, so what are the difference between those 3? Okay, so first, let's head on to the element selector. Okay, so what it says here in the element selector, the HTML element's name is used as a selector to set the associated tag. For example, if your HTML document has H1 tag, then the HTML selector is H1. Okay, so that is what I was talking to you, telling to you earlier. The selector being the tag. Okay, So in terms of element selector, it is as simple as the selector is the tag itself. Okay, so if it is a table, so it is going to be the table. If it is an ordered list, it is going to be UL. If it is an ordered list, it is going to be UL. Okay, so as long as it is a tag that will have a property or a CSS syntax applied to it, so that is what we're going to use in here as our selector. Okay, so is that clear? You understand that part? Okay, so for short, element selector, that is the tag itself. Okay, so minus the bracket. Next one we have is the class selector. Okay, so for the class selectors can be applied to multiple types of selectors. This selector is the most used because of its versatility, and several tags can be enclosed within it. Class selector is preceded by a period. Okay, so similar as to what we are now. Okay, so we are inside of the same class, right? So for example, your section is Brilliance B. Okay, so that is your class. Okay, so I can say that Julian, that Clarete, that Jaylan, they are all in the class of Radiance B. So once I announce something which is directed to the Brilliance B, okay, so they will be able to intercept that announcement. Okay, so that is similar in the class selector. Okay, so but first in calling the class selector, it is using a period. Okay, it uses a period for that class name to be called. Okay, and what is the code? Okay, how are we going to apply it? So as you can see here, we have a p tag that has a formatting attribute class name. Okay, so that is how we are going to apply a class to our tags. Okay, and in order to call those tags or to call those class names, so we are going to use periods in our selector. Okay, and okay, so let me apply this first so that you know or you can see clearly how it is being applied. Okay, so we can do that in here. Okay, so let's say for example, I am going to remove this one. Line break goes brr. Okay, so in here we applied multiple headers. Okay, so multiple headers and multiple paragraphs. So as you can see, we have multiple H1s. Okay, so let's have this as H2. This one, H3. This one as H4. Okay, there. So as you can see, as of now, only H1 has a property applied to it. Okay. And then for the H2, for example, the name is top part. Okay, so the class name is going to be top part. then we're going to apply it in some tags. Okay, so let's say H3, it belongs to the class top part. Also, this P tag here, top part. Okay, so in here we have 1, 2, 3 tags that are in the same class. Okay, so all of them are in the top part class, or they have a class of top part. So in order to call the top part, so that is period top part, and then we're going to apply color green. Okay, and once I run this, all of the tags that has the class top part will have the color green there. So you can see here, this one, and this one, all of their colors are now green. But if you're going to call on a particular tag or a particular yes tag, you're going to have to include it in the selector. Okay, so that's going to be P top part. There. So there's no space. P dot top part. Okay. And all of the P that has the class top part, it is the only one that will have the color green applied to it. And as you can see, only this P tag has the top part class, and it is the only P tag there. Okay, so that is how we are applying the class selectors. So is that clear? So if it is just the selector or the class, if it's just the class name, okay, so it is period, then the class name. Okay, run. But if you want a specific tag and then the class name, so you include the tag name. So in this case, H2 top part there. H2 dot top part. Okay, there's no space. And this one, it is the only one having green color. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, on for the last part. Okay, so the last one is the ID selector. Okay, so what does it says here in the ID selector? This selector can be applied to any HTML tag, but in a limited manner. An ID selector can be applied on an HTML tag only once in a page. And an ID name can be a combination of letters and numbers. It is preceded by a sharp sign. Okay, so for the class, if we are applying a period in order to call the selector, for the ID selector, we're using a hashtag and then the ID name. Okay, so the class, we're using period. For ID selector, we are using hashtag. And do you still remember the bookmark topic, our topic for the bookmark? Yes, okay. So from there, we are applying an ID formatting attribute, right? So in a particular section, for example, we head on to the H2 tag, and then we give it an ID equals sector 7, like that. And then we head on to our bookmark, where our bookmark, it is functioning as a navigator or a URL. Okay, so once we click that bookmark, it will go to the section that has the ID section 7, like that. Okay, so same application of the ID in here. Okay, so in the particular tag, we have the P tag, and then we give it an ID and then the name. Okay, if you can still remember, the ID name should always be unique. Okay, because of course, from the name itself, of the formatting attribute, it should be ID. So it should be a unique name. Okay, and it says here that it is going to be applied, or the ID name is going to be applied once per page. Okay, so there can be no other ID name with the same name. Okay, so same application for the class. So if it is ID equals ID name, and then we call it by hashtag, so that is the same application. So let's try that here. So let's say that, okay, all of the top parts have green color. And then we apply an ID here. And then we gave this P tag an ID. So we called it P tag. Okay. So once we run this, there's no difference. Okay. So for us to call a specific ID name, so we're going to use hashtag, then the ID name P tag, and then curly brackets. So we are going to call it, and then we'll provide a particular property to it. For example, on family impact. Once I run this, there. So this specific tag or this specific element has that application applied to it. So it is similar to a inline style sheet. Okay, so for the ID, because it is being applied in a specific tag which has an ID name. Okay, so is that clear? Okay, any questions? None? Okay, so that is lesson 2. So that would be all for today, everyone. Okay, if there are no more questions, no more? Okay, so that would be all for today again, everyone. So goodbye.
Yeah, thank you,
Yan,
Thank
teacher.
you,
thank
Thank
you,
you so
teacher.
much.
Thank you, teacher.